Okay. Sorry. Okay, welcome. We're good now. Sorry, there's not many buttons backstage in this platform, but it's a good one. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for this panel, which I'm very excited about. It's going to be a very interesting panel, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. But before we do that, let me first introduce our speakers today. I'll just bring them all on stage, and then I'll introduce them one by one. So bear with me as I do that. And so we've got 4 speakers, 2 who are also presenting, which is exciting. We've just heard Renee, and we also have Bashaki coming up shortly as well. So let me do a quick introduction for you. So first up, we have Mark. Mark is the Managing Director at Altus. Mark is a seasoned entrepreneur and expert in project portfolio management with over 25 years of global experience in delivering innovative work management solutions. As the founder and managing director of Altus, he leads the development of Altus, an AI-driven PPM solution built for Microsoft 365. Mark is passionate about technology strategy and enabling organizations to align work with business goals, and he's also a former Microsoft MVP and PMO Ambassador of Australia. So please join me in welcoming Mark. Thank you, Mark, for joining us.
Thank you, Fatima, for having me.
No problem. And so we also like to introduce Renee Jockalone. Renee, we just heard speak and has an exceptional background and 30 years experience for those that missed out earlier in all things enterprise-wide strategic change and transformation, including in organizations in the Fortune 500, such as Bank of America, Kellogg's, and McDonald's. Renee specializes in building world-class EPMOs through a human-centric approach and cultivates high-performance teams through coaching, learning, and development. Thank you, and welcome back, Renee.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have Bashaki Connor. So Bashaki is a senior business leader with over 20 years experience driving growth, transformation, and cultural reset across FMCG and retail. At Coles Group, our second largest retailer, she led the $600 million private label P&L, turning decline into growth, doubling engagement, and tripling new product revenue. At AB InBev, she delivered $250 million post-merger synergies across Asia Pacific. And at CUB, she helped position Great Northern as Australia's first $1 billion plus alcohol brand. With her expertise spanning P&L leadership, cost transformation, large-scale digital delivery, and people-first leadership, Bashaki combines commercial depth, operational discipline, and creative edge to deliver enterprise-wide impact and enduring market leadership. Welcome, Bashaki.
Thank you for having me.
And my last but certainly not least, longtime friend, Peter Houlihan. Peter has lots of years project planning, delivering, and he says he has the grey hair to prove it. We won't pay attention to that. Peter has established and led multiple EPMOs with a focus on connecting strategy to execution, effective planning, and disciplined delivery. Peter now works as a trusted advisor for organizations navigating the complex system that is organizational change and the messy space between strategy and delivery. And he also met after running a number of PMO cohort groups in Melbourne. So he has lots of knowledge to share. So thank you, Peter, and welcome as well.
G'day, it's great to be here with this fantastic panel.
Excellent. So let's kick off. This panel's more than just about project management. We want to talk about bridging strategy, delivery, and executive leadership, which all of you have a part to play in. Often when we think about project management, they're usually seen project managers and project management's just about delivery. But we're finding that project management itself is evolving in organizations, and more is being spent on project management overall. So we want to explore how project managers are becoming more strategic partners in the boardroom and how delivery and strategy can reinforce each other, as they're not isolated events or isolated functions and capabilities. So hopefully by the end of the session, we can share some practical insights for all leaders that are listening and watching you today. So I'm going to kick off, and I want to start by asking you all, when we think about project management in general, we often see project managers as execution machines. It's just about delivery, executing, and sometimes maybe not given as much of the necessary, I guess, support that's needed to really drive strategic change. Strategy is usually developed and then handed over or thrown over the fence. So I would like to hear from each of you. What does it really take for project professionals to become strategic advisors to the C-suite and to the boardrooms? Maybe Bishaki, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So we do need that execution machine, right? So if I think about retail and at a size like Coles or Woolworths, take any process. So let's say a range review, which there may be 300 different reviews every year where we say, let's review the milk category or the yogurt category, what sells, what doesn't, bring in new products. And that's a 9-10 month process that has to put things on shelves at the right time, at the right price in 1,000 stores or more. So you absolutely need that execution delivery. But what makes the best project managers and makes them kind of partners to the executives is the people who obsess about results. They obsess about the commercial results and they obsess about the outcome. So not just, have I followed all the 1,000 steps over the 9 months? Have I done the PIR or the post-implementation review? But actually, has it resulted in more sales? Has it resulted in more availability? If not, why not? What was the reason? What learning can I take to the next review to do it? And the people who do this over and over, they become our strategic advisors. And that is what I want to look for in all my project managers. Show me results. And you absolutely have to do the execution, but also show me results and become my trusted advisor on it. You know, you're doing so many in detail. You are my trusted eyes and ears out there. So show me the results.
It's really well put, Bishaki, because your experience comes from the operational lens and you have project managers who are reporting into you, not at the EPMO level, but at a divisional or a department level. So yeah. I think that's really insightful. Peter, did you want to add your point of view from an EPMO level and what you're seeing from that perspective?
Yeah, just picking up on what Bishaki said there, it just reminded me of something that Rob Thompson, who's probably well known to a lot of people in Melbourne, used to say he always talked about outcomes, outputs and objectives, with outcomes being the key feature for any sort of project manager to drive. So I think that's really important. I guess another thing, just I've got a lot of things that I could add to it, but one in particular was around boldness and kind of also picking up on that. Often, as you said, Fatima, project managers are handed something to get done, and you can remain in that order taking sort of mode if you like, but it's up to the project manager and project leader, as Renee said in the last one, to actually step up, and if something's not right, is actually to take control and do it themselves. Is to make sure not do it themselves, but make sure it gets done. So if there isn't a strategy in the area that you're working in, and often, you know, we'll see that, step in and see how you can influence that. And so stop being the person who is making the excuses and start being the person who takes on that accountability, even if it's outside where you see your role as a project manager. So that would be one thing, I guess. With EPMOs, we, as a number of people know, I ran a PMO that was, we ended up being a strategic management office rather than a EPMO. And that came about because we were able to talk directly to the executives within the organisation. This was a not-for-profit organisations. And by talking directly with the executives, we actually pointed out we don't have a strategy that allows us to execute on it. We had some strategic statements. So we took on the accountability for fleshing out that strategy into something that was then, you know, through lots of KPIs and all sorts of things, we were able to build that and say, we need this for us to deliver effectively, we need this to be in place. For that to be in place, we need to engage with the executives and the board about what does that mean. So I guess that was an example of stepping forward to take that on.
Interestingly, going back to something Renee you had mentioned, just in terms of the visibility. So obviously, when we think about strategy, sometimes there's things that are not shared as low as level as needed as maybe as a project managers need, but we need to make sure we're in alignment. So how does a question that came to me recently that I'm interested in your perspective on is, how do we as professionals who maybe are good at strategy and delivery use our skills to actually be involved in both, when organizations typically split those functions out and keep them separate? Like, how do we, to Peter's point around influence, like how do we be more proactive to be involved in those conversations? Do you have any recommendations?
I have an experience. I have an experience kind of inserting myself into the upstream strategy in the name of our superior facilitation skills. So one of the techniques I use to kind of get into the room, if this wasn't technically in my remit, was to be that impartial, objective facilitator to help the leaders go through the process of making choices, right? And because that's what strat planning is. It's about making choices. It's choosing what to do and what not to do. And those are hard. And so one of the ways that I contributed was I volunteered to kind of be in the room, to take the team through exercises. We literally, had little dollar bills made up as sticky notes to help facilitate the funding mindset. Like, where would we put, if we only have this dollar, where would we put it, to drive that choice, making choices. So one of the things I don't know any good PMO leader or project or program manager who isn't a superior facilitator, who can get a group of people to talk and get from point A to point B. And so I volunteered to play that role, and that's what got me in the room.
So keyword there being volunteering. One of the tenets of expanding your horizons is actually putting your hand up for things sometimes that may not even be relevant. A good piece of advice, thank you. And then I wanted to touch on the earlier comment, Bishaki, you made, and ask Mark a question. So we talked about getting results, and ROI and data came up, and you spend a lot of time and in this space working with data and bringing dashboards and reporting and insights, and working with execs to actually bring that to the front of mind. So Mark, can you tell us, how do we work better to leverage that information, and what's some things that you've seen work really well?
Well, Fatima, I think especially right now we are living on the edge of what I call a revolution. This AI-driven capability, I'm sure, has all impacted us already greatly. We see productivity increase, but more so, what I see is through the automation and through the ability to utilize AI is really trying to eliminate administration. When I look at project managers, we define project managers in a whole bunch of different ways. When I started this, what appears to be 160 years ago, we always tried to incorporate, and that's why I lost my hair. I used to have gray hair, Peter. I lost it. It's been a bit longer. But what I see is we used to implement solutions and told organizations to increase their organizational maturity. The fact is, that's not how it works. Fact is, every single organization has different levels of project management maturity. These days, also different methodologies. And the ability to convey the message of mapping work that you do to strategy is actually the challenge. So when we implement this on all levels of an organization. And it is always my first question to project managers: hey, why do you implement this project? Still today, do you know what number one answer is?
What's that?
Because they told me to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is where the fundamental challenge lays. Not only do we have to bring professional and what I call citizen project managers on that journey, we also have to ensure that the understanding of the why is in the forefront. Project managers are, I like to call them, they are in the weeds, right? They need to make sure that they manage their constraints, resource constraints, financial constraints, risk constraints, deliverables. And very often they have not even the opportunity, due to the administration that they need to do, they don't even have the opportunity to inhale what that project piece of work actually entails and how it moves the dial strategically. So what we have discovered, and obviously there are 50,000 different ways of how you can measure KPIs and OKRs and all of these wonderful things. The issue there is no the correlation between the strategic goals and the KPIs or OKRs is too vast. So we have started to recognize that, and that's what we call it. Measurements and evaluations of work should only ever be one step away from the strategic goals. That suddenly evokes the why within a project, and then everyone, not just the project manager, but the entire team, can actually be behind that and recognize that. And you will see that once that happens, things like mundane work or work that is not relevant will suddenly vanish. The reduction of administration because of that is mind-blowing. So I really believe that these days, when I look at the next generation of the project managers, they really have to become the orchestrator of outcomes. And these outcomes need to be directly measurable against the strategy. So that's my 2 cents worth of that.
It's
Could I just pick
interesting.
up on something else?
Yeah,
Sorry.
please. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
No, it's really good, Mark. I just wanted to follow up with, in Victoria, there's a whole series of really good reports that were written by the Victorian Auditor General and the Victorian Ombudsman on what makes a bad project, as in what fails. But they also do what makes good projects, so what's successful. And being the project manager nerd that I am, we did a bit of an analysis across all these things. And what's kind of clear is that successful projects all had kind of 4 things in common. They had a good plan and they had really disciplined delivery, so they did project management well. But they also had really super engaged stakeholders, and most importantly, they had a common and shared story of what success looked like. Yeah. So I just thought that I picked that up from Mark as well. Yes. That I think, and if our project managers are focusing on the disciplined delivery and having a fantastic project plan, like Renee said in the last session, you don't get an award for doing a great project plan. You don't get promoted for getting all your status reports in on time. Sorry, it doesn't happen. But if you can tell a great story that links what you're delivering to your strategy, and where it's missing as well, that's the important part. I think that's a really a mark that you're on your way to success. I wouldn't say it's the only thing, but it's certainly an important part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, Peter, that there are certain terminologies that I've heard that I'm going to say despise. I know it's a hard word. I'm German, right? I'm allowed to do that. Status reports. What's the purpose of a status report? We are not employed to create status reports. What we need to do is we need to update our stakeholders on the progress. Now, these days we do and we just simply translate that into reports. It really is insight and visibility, but these days we want to go a step further. It's not only the visibility, it is actually the ability for you to gain advice, because let's face it, and I'm sure we'll get to that. If you ask, and I have to ask that all the time, I go to an executive level and I say, hey, what do you want to see in terms of project program portfolio management, dear executive? Do you know what I get as the number one answer? Would you suggest something? They don't know. They don't know. And you know why? It's because the communication and the terminology is different. Executive managers want to have the ability to execute the strategy that they came up with. So their terminology always needs to refer to moving the dial of the strategy, whereby a project manager says, hey, I've done all of these 100 deliverables. Am I cool or what? The question is not, have you delivered? Have you created a beautiful plan? That's what I pay you for, actually. What I need to make sure is that you understand what moves the dial, and suddenly you have that communication layer. And I even go a step further, Peter. I predict that over the next, I'm going to say 5 years, now I'm going to say 10 years because I hope I'm going to be retired and you can't come and blame me for that. Over the next 5 to 10 years, we will not have the concept of a project status update. Do you know why? Because at any point in time, you need to know what's going on. And technology these days does that. But we fully automate it. I need to be able, at 6 o'clock in the morning, I get up, I want to see the status. I say, hey, what's the status of my project? Bang, there it is. And this is where we move into these days, really. Yeah.
That sounds like a dream, Mark, because I don't know about you guys and girls, but I sometimes find that it feels like it takes a month to do a monthly steering committee report with the amount of data points and information. It's just, and then the formatting, their fixation on small irrelevant things when there's bigger.
I rest my case, right? I rest my case.
Yeah.
The small bits and pieces,
substance.
people get annoyed about.
Exactly. And saturation was another comment that Renee, you had mentioned previously, and it's come up a few times. So we've talked a little bit about how project managers are often labeled as execution focused and all of that, but want to sort of think about what does it actually take for them to be seen as strategic partners. So I guess a question I would like to delve into, get your perspectives on, from each of your areas, from the consulting arm, from an operational management lens, from a PMO lens, how can project managers and PMO leaders shift from being controllers, cost controllers, to value creators? What have you seen worked? Maybe I'll circle back, Bishaki. What have you seen works really well when you've had those people perform really well in your organizations?
Yeah, I think so much of what Mark and Peter, you both already mentioned, but my 3 things are: be financially literate and tell me what moves the P&L, not just your budget. So yes, your budget may be on track and you may be delivering within whatever the project silo is, but what I care about as an executive is whether, like Mark said, whether the strategy is moving in the right direction. So be literate and fluent in that language to tell me in my language whether that's working, not in Agile, Safe, Scrum, or any formats of it, but in my language, whether that's working. That's number 1. The second thing is tell me, and especially my teams, the story, not just the data. So again, all these dashboards and colors and etc. If you show me my 12 projects with different colors, and I'm like, I don't know, you've shown me that 7 are green, 3 are yellow, 1's red. Is that good or bad? Like, who are those? Is that red project the one critical thing that I should do? I don't know. So tell me what I need to know. Make the meeting effective. If everything's green, I don't need to know anything. Just tell me it's going on track. Even email me. But tell me stories with data. Tell me where I can celebrate some wins. Tell me where I need to step into the detail and help you fix something. Tell me where you need help, and tell me through narrative, not just charts and data and all of that. And definitely be far more adaptive. So you're managing not just effort and delivery, you're managing energy. You're managing the entire company's energy and effort towards an objective. So in that way, read the room, coach the teams, and manage that organizational effort and energy towards that thing. So my 3 things are that: tell me stories, understand your finance, and adapt. Be adaptive.
Love it. Adaptive is a key word and repeated theme in a lot of what we're seeing and hearing lately, and a lot of what I hear a lot about. You mentioned the word coaching. I want to circle back, Renee. What would you add to that list from your perspective, from the people and the companies you're coaching?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great list. I was nodding the whole time. Some of the things that come to mind is it is about the differentiators are about so much of the soft skills. We've already talked about this. Like, I don't want to hear jargon, right? Like, let's ditch the RAID logs, let's ditch the status report, nouns and verbs, people, nouns and verbs, right? And I think that's what you were just speaking to. And then the connecting the dots. So this one of the differentiators from third-party consultancies, if you're an internal, is your knowledge of the organization, your emotional intelligence, your ability to read the room and understand what's not being said, right? The meeting after the meeting, right? There's the secret sauce. There's where the game is won or lost. It's in the it's in the soft skills that's going to make or break a high performing PMO. It's art. I hate to say it that way, but a lot of it is art and less about science. I think that's exactly what I think that was Mark talking, or maybe, Mark talking about. That's where the puck is going right now. It is all about the art of this craft and less about the science. That's going to be automated. So that's where I would go with.
It's interesting that you say that, Renee, because when I talk to executive and I say, hey, how do you define your strategy? How do you plan and how do you execute your strategy? Number one sentence I get, oh, it's a bit of a black art. I disagree with that. You know what? Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It is actually protecting. That's what I believe. Mm-hmm. Strategy is not art. It's not. It is numbers. It is choices. Process. It is delivery. Yeah. That's what it is, right?
Yeah. So I think of it as choices. I think it's choices.
Exactly. Yeah. And the human factor, Renee, I believe is super important, because what ultimately, and just like Kashi, what you said in terms of financial knowledge, I'm going to bring this a bit further. I believe project manager need to have a greater business acumen, not just financial. Marketing, a human factor, anything around an organization. They need to become mini CEOs ultimately, because they have exactly that part to fulfill. So business acumen, learn the why. That will evolve a project manager to become really this strategic advisor, and suddenly you are on that same level. If you give an executive something that makes their job better, believe me, you will be the favorite child. That's just a fact. So that the human factor is the part that people need to really recognize. And and anybody who says black art or it is a piece of art, I would say, no, it's not. It is process. It is data. You can bring all of these things down. Right?
That means they probably haven't done their work, Mark. They probably haven't done it. Sorry, Peter, you were going to add?
I almost agree with Mark, I think, but I'm not sure that I agree 100%. So I think there's a level of strategy which is not analytical, if that makes sense. So it's not that it's art, but it's something else. And you can see this coming through in a lot of areas. People are talking about how organisations are complex adaptive systems, to use kind of jargony sort of word. And if we think of it as being something that we can pin down a bit like a butterfly in a cage, where we pin it down, we miss the dynamics of the system. So I think it is data and it is that, but it's not just analytics. It's understanding how these human-based complex systems all come together. And that really requires a level of curiosity. And this is where I completely agree with Mark. Curiosity about the organisation that you're working with. How many times have we seen a project manager who maybe is a contract project manager, and they say, they identify as being a project manager instead of being a part of the organisation that has that has things that they have to deliver to make the organisation successful. I think that's another key area. But so I think I've come around and probably ended up agreeing with you, Mark, in the end. Anyway, so
well, Peter, actually, I know exactly what you're saying, right? But we are not just robots. We are not living by data alone. I actually refer to this not as art. I refer to it as gut feeling. And the reason why I call it gut feeling is I read a study a couple of weeks ago which just confirmed that I'm a very intuitive person. So I listen to my gut. And people always say, no, you need to listen to your head. They made a study that actually proven that the gut feeling aspect of you is actually what leads you, and the brain will justify your gut feeling. So that's why art for me is more esoteric and a little bit more artistic. Gut feeling in the business not sure whether it's called whether it's called martial art or something like that, but it is that gut feeling aspect, I think, that you are referring to, Peter, and that needs to be there. You need to have that feeling, because data only supports your gut feel.
It's the second brain, as they call it. I think they say
the second brain. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've got a question from the audience, which I'll pop up on screen. We've got a couple more questions. So let me bring up the question and I'll read it out because it's a bit. So the question to whoever would like to take this one: how do you translate delivery level metrics into executive level impact stories that resonate with boards and CEOs? So who would like to take that one?
I can give it a go if you wanted to, because it has to do with data, and we actually deal with this sort of on a regular basis. How do you translate all of the work into making that dial work, right? The deliver level information should always actually be based on the strategic why, and I think that's where the synchronization happens. It's not one or the other, and it's not a translator. It's actually a synchronization, a breakdown of what we want to ultimately achieve, in my view. So I know that we have lots of projects that we then bring up and ask for approval. But honestly, I don't believe that executives, that they will not look at the time and the effort and all of that. Yet they will look at this from a holistic point of view. I think these deliverables in the project that we deliver need to translate and be based actually off that strategic statement or the evaluation statement that should come, in my view, from the executive managers. Yeah.
So I'll jump in. A couple of thoughts as you were talking. Back to our point about the kind of those internal metrics that we've that are tried and true. I think that's kind of what they're referring to. How do you translate that into something the C-suite cares? Because as we've said over and over again, they don't care how the sausage is made. They're outcome oriented, the results oriented. And so one of the ways I've done that, what you're looking for is the so what. So one so what idea is relevancy. So I don't know any C-suite that expects perfection. What they want to do is be getting better than their competition, right? Getting better faster, right, than your competition. And so, that's how one might think. And so in the PMO, what I would always try to do is understand where we came from, what was last year's performance, last quarter, last month, and show progress. So it's, in that case, it's not the absolute numbers, on time or how many user stories or whatever, right? It's the relevancy. Are we getting faster? Is our quality getting better? So that's the so what, and it's leading with the relevant, more of a relative metric as opposed to an absolute metric. So that's one way. And a more creative and maybe taking some liberty ways is, let's say you're delivering, portfolio that is a revenue generating portfolio or a cost reduction portfolio. You could make the case that by getting better at execution, project execution, you are unlocking so many dollars that can be reinvested. And in the past, I've translated those dollars into, so many, into productivity terms of our actual product, or so many client meetings. I've tried to translate that value into something that is either revenue generating or cost reduction, even if it's not necessarily real, but it's to reframe it in language that they can relate to, and it gives a sense of, oh wow, it's worth that much, that you unlock that much value in terms that they can understand, even if it's you've taken a liberty to do it. So that was two ideas I had on that front.
Yeah, that's super helpful, Renee. Thank you for sharing that, and I think it resonates from the message that you had previously mentioned in your previous talk as well. So, and I know we're going to hear more about these components in the conversations we've got coming up. We're almost out of time. I have one final question for you all, and I do implore people to reach out to you. Your details are on the platform and also via LinkedIn, and we'll also share some more information after the event. So this whole conference is about being future ready leaders, future ready projects, future ready PMOs, future ready. So I guess just quickly going around the room, what will it take, what from your perspectives, to be future ready? If you could just summarize that. I'll probably kick off, maybe Bishaki will kick off with you. What does it take to be future ready?
Yeah, I'm just about to go into a full talk on that, but it's everything we talked about here. So be human, understand the entire system first, go listen, be data led after that. So yes, the people, the systems you've checked will tell you many of the hidden assumptions, some human middleware sometimes where techs are not connected, humans are doing it, you'll understand all that, but then the data and the process will kind of give you some inspection of those systems. Then you have to really focus on that why and what is the choice that I'm making, and make it clear without buzzwords for the entire organization so that your project managers really understand the why and the team understands the why. Only then can you execute the delivery to that plan. So then it doesn't become just a here's the milestones, here's the dependencies. You will then become equipped to go, as the future changes and we're at the edge of this revolution, this is how I would switch because of this. Or if we don't do this at this point, despite being tracking to my deliverables, we will miss EBIT by this much, or we're missing budget by this much, or the markets change. We told our analysts or investors this is what will change. And then really, really understand the art of storytelling, the art of narrative, so you can keep this momentum going. So those are my 5 things to be human. Human first by listening, human end by storytelling, but there's a lot of data and process in between, so you can bring them together.
And stay tuned, Bishaki speaking in about 18 minutes from now. So we can definitely deep dive into that. Peter, a minute, thoughts, closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think just coming back to that being curious sort of part is if I can add anything to what Bishaki has done. So, and that means in a way it's kind of counterintuitive for project managers, but it's being prepared to have lots of conversations with people where you don't propose an answer, but you listen to the problem. Really hard for project managers because we're solution focused people. But I think that really helps with getting to understand the business and understand what people need, where they need your help. Could be important.
Thank you so much, Peter. Mark, a closing comment?
Yes, look, everything that was already said, the why, business acumen, I call it learn data fluency and AI literally, that is really that next iteration. You will see that the work of a project manager will change dramatically. Storytelling, I fully agree with that. That is actually a missing trait in our occupation. I don't know why. We all love stories. Look, I wrote down a sentence here a couple of days ago in terms of, the project manager of 2030. And I'm going to read that as a closing statement from my point of view. In 2030, the project manager is no longer a deliverer of projects, but a custodian of organizational predictability, a strategic orchestrator ensuring that every investment, initiative, and idea moves the company towards its goal with intelligence, speed, and purpose. So that was the sentence that I wrote down in terms of where I see the role of a project manager being in 2030.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Renee, do you want to throw in the last comment before we end the session?
Yeah, listen, everything, I don't have much to say. So I'll because everything that y'all said is spot on. But I will say 3 things. Be a leader, not a manager. Steal a page from what it takes to be a general leader versus a general manager. That's the transformation that needs to happen. Outcomes over activities, right? We've got to shed our obsession with our deliverable counts and our templates and lean more into what I call fit for purpose. So, and I know those that have methodologies or endorsing methodologies that want to throw something at me, but I really do feel like it's got to be the substance over the form, right? It just, we have to put the fit for purpose and the reason we're doing something ahead of how we're doing it. Like how can vary, the outcome can't. So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Renee, Mark, Peter, and Bishaki. Thank you for your time. And if anyone wants to connect with you, they can find you on LinkedIn. Appreciate it. And I'll see everyone in the next session. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
very
very
much.
much.
Thanks, team. See
Thank
ya.
you. Bye-bye now.